Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most pressing issues of our time, the economic collapse looming over the U.S. It's not just rising national debt and the collapse of major industries. Some states may not be able to withstand the economic storm. In this video, we'll take a look at the top 10 states that are most likely to collapse as the U.S. economy crashes. How will the decline in revenue, rising unemployment, and budget shortages impact these states? Do you believe the U.S. is on the brink of a full-blown economic crisis? Leave a 1 if you agree, and a 0 if you don't. Join us as we explore the deep economic changes and their impacts on the states. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. The United States, the world's largest economy, is facing an unprecedented economic crisis. With public debt exceeding $35 trillion and this number growing rapidly, the national debt increases by nearly $1 trillion every 100 days. This is a staggering figure that could push any economy into crisis. This not only affects the government but also the everyday American. Each taxpayer is responsible for more than $15,000 of national debt, a significant amount. For ordinary citizens, they are facing severe challenges. While Wall Street and Washington continue printing money, millions of Americans would be unable to survive a month without their paycheck. Their lives are becoming more uncertain, with no security for the future. Pension crises, bankrupt hospitals, collapsing schools, and a declining population in many states are clear signs of economic decline. Although these issues have been recognized for a long time, the U.S. economic system continues to operate under an uncontrolled spending policy, leading to ever-increasing debt. This situation has created a vicious cycle where temporary solutions cannot help America escape the crisis. The U.S. population is steadily shrinking, and communities in various states are struggling to maintain a stable standard of living. Furthermore, the healthcare system is on the verge of collapse, as hospitals cannot sustain operations due to a shortage of resources. This crisis is forcing states to struggle with maintaining essential public facilities such as schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. This is creating a true nationwide crisis that not only affects families, but also the future of the nation. When the next recession occurs, it will not just be a financial crisis. It will be the total collapse of many states. They will not only face financial crises, but also a lack of basic resources, leading to severe impacts on people's lives. Some states may even face the risk of bankruptcy, unable to maintain basic services like healthcare, education, and social welfare. The lesson we can learn from this situation is the importance of macroeconomic financial management and the need for sustainable solutions to address the national debt. Governments cannot continue printing money and increasing national debt without accompanying measures to safeguard the economy. At the same time, we need to reconsider the country's spending practices, especially during difficult times. Moreover, effective resource management at the state level is crucial. Each state must protect itself from the risks of an economic downturn, particularly as the national economy shows signs of weakness. States must find ways to improve infrastructure, enhance the quality of education and healthcare, and reduce unnecessary costs to ensure long-term development. This is a wake-up call for individuals, businesses, and governments that, if the financial and economic management systems are not changed, the U.S. will face an unprecedented crisis. States may have to witness their collapse if timely interventions are not made. So, what is the lesson for everyone? It is investing in essential sectors like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. This will not only help protect the vulnerable, but also contribute to sustainable economic growth. We must also recognize that financial policies must be implemented cautiously, not only to maintain development, but also to avoid unforeseeable consequences in the future. Implementing urgent measures to reduce national debt and increase investment in key sectors will help the U.S. economy stand strong against the upcoming challenges. Lastly, individuals should also take proactive steps in managing their personal finances, creating long-term financial plans to avoid difficulties when the economy fluctuates. Financial independence will help people weather tough times and safeguard their future. West Virginia, a state once prominent for its coal-dependent economy, now faces a severe crisis not only in its economy but also in its social and healthcare sectors. The coal industry, the backbone of West Virginia's economy, has dramatically declined over the past decade. Since 2010, the industry has dropped by more than 75%, leading to the loss of stable jobs for tens of thousands of workers. While coal once provided thousands of well-paying jobs, many workers now have to turn to low-wage service jobs or rely on federal assistance to survive. This situation has trapped West Virginia in a vicious cycle. As the economy weakens, the workforce also suffers. Over 20% of the population currently lives below the poverty line, while the percentage of working-age adults employed is only around 54%. This shows a seriously weakened workforce that lacks the capacity to sustain the state's economy. Additionally, the opioid epidemic has worsened the situation, with West Virginia having the highest overdose death rate in the country, a factor that cannot be overlooked in the state's economic and social challenges. Another key issue is population decline, with over 100,000 residents leaving West Virginia since 2010, a 6% decrease over the past decade. The main reasons for this trend include a lack of job opportunities, low quality of life, and the state's inability to attract younger people. At the same time, West Virginia is facing a rapidly aging population, with nearly 21% of its residents over 65 years old. This puts significant pressure on the healthcare system and pension funds, as a large portion of the population cannot care for themselves and needs assistance from social welfare programs. Furthermore, the state's infrastructure is severely deteriorating. Many transportation projects, bridges, and roads are not being properly maintained, making it difficult for people to get around and affecting the quality of life. The failing transportation system also makes it harder for businesses to ship goods, and residents cannot access essential services. The state's budget reserves are nearly depleted, forcing West Virginia to rely on federal transfers to keep operating, making it even more vulnerable in times of economic crisis. The lesson from West Virginia's situation is that over-reliance on a single industry can pose significant risks to an economy. When the coal industry began to decline, there was no sustainable development plan to replace it, leaving the local economy deeply wounded. States and nations must diversify their economies, developing various industries to reduce the risks when one industry faces difficulties. Additionally, creating new job opportunities, especially for low-skilled workers, is crucial to keeping the workforce alive. West Virginia could learn from other states by investing in new industries such as technology, renewable energy, and healthcare services. Shifting the economy towards these sectors would help create stable, sustainable jobs and reduce dependence on unsustainable income sources like coal. Another important lesson is the need for infrastructure investment. When infrastructure deteriorates, it not only creates difficulties in the daily lives of residents, but also affects the state's competitiveness. Investing in transportation, healthcare, and educational infrastructure will improve living standards and provide economic development momentum. States need to prioritize the maintenance and improvement of infrastructure to avoid falling into decline like West Virginia. Lastly, addressing the aging population and population decline requires policies that encourage people to live and work in struggling states like West Virginia. Policies such as housing support, better education quality, and improved healthcare will help attract and retain young people, reduce labor shortages, and promote sustainable development. West Virginia serves as a cautionary tale for other states in building a sustainable and diverse economy. The challenges the state faces are not only their own, but a common issue for regions that rely on traditional industries. To overcome these challenges, states need flexible development strategies that combine innovation with the preservation of traditional values, thus creating a stable and long-lasting economy. Mississippi is a state currently facing several serious issues, particularly poverty, unemployment, and a weak infrastructure system. These challenges not only impact the quality of life for its residents, but also hinder the state's sustainable development. Economically, Mississippi ranks among the poorest states in the U.S., with a median household income of only about $48,000, which is $22,000 lower than the national average. This reflects an economy lacking growth drivers, where people struggle to meet daily needs. Nearly 20% of the population lives below the poverty line, twice the national average. Moreover, the state's unemployment rate is high, particularly in rural areas where job opportunities and industrial growth are limited. This poverty and lack of job opportunities directly affect the quality of education and healthcare in Mississippi. The state consistently ranks at the bottom in national testing scores, indicating weaknesses in its education system. Schools lack sufficient funding, infrastructure, and learning materials, preventing students from receiving a full, quality education. This creates a vicious cycle. People don't have good jobs, lack necessary skills, and thus remain trapped in poverty. Mississippi also has the highest infant mortality rate in the nation, reflecting serious deficiencies in the healthcare system. Overburdened, underfunded, and understaffed, the state's healthcare services make it difficult for residents to access basic care. Another critical issue threatening Mississippi's development is its crumbling infrastructure. Approximately 25% of the state's bridges are in disrepair, posing dangers for travelers and disrupting economic activities. Weak infrastructure not only affects daily life, but also reduces the state's competitiveness in attracting investment and economic growth. A poorly developed transportation system and lack of modern infrastructure make Mississippi less appealing to investors. The state also faces a massive debt burden related to infrastructure repairs. Mississippi is grappling with a substantial debt to address the deterioration of its infrastructure, which not only strains the state's budget, but also affects its long-term development prospects. The lack of funds for infrastructure investment limits the state's ability to build crucial projects that would support economic growth. The lesson from Mississippi's situation is that developing a sustainable economy requires policies that focus on the quality of education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Poverty and unemployment are not problems that can be solved simply without a strong education system to equip people with the skills and knowledge needed for the modern economy. Moreover, improving the healthcare system and infrastructure is crucial to enhancing the quality of life and creating an environment conducive to business development. States like Mississippi need integrated development strategies, focusing on education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Investing in education will allow Mississippi's younger generation to improve their skills and gain better job opportunities. Investing in infrastructure will improve residents' lives and create new economic opportunities, which will attract investors and drive sustainable economic growth. Additionally, states should focus on improving the work environment and creating stable job opportunities for residents. The state government could develop vocational training programs and support startups, helping them grow and create new job opportunities for the population. While Mississippi is currently in a difficult position, with the right changes in policy and investment, the state can recover and develop sustainably. Building a diversified and sustainable economy will help Mississippians escape the cycle of poverty and create a brighter future for future generations. Michigan, one of the largest state economies in the U.S., is facing a range of serious challenges, primarily reliance on the auto industry, financial difficulties, population decline, as well as infrastructure and healthcare crises. The automotive industry remains a vital pillar of Michigan's economy, accounting for nearly 20% of the state's GDP. However, the state's over-reliance on this single industry has made Michigan vulnerable to fluctuations in the auto market. When the auto industry faces difficulties, as seen in recent years with major car manufacturers struggling with fierce competition and the shift to electric vehicles, Michigan's economy suffers significantly. Changes in consumer trends and production issues can lead to rapid economic downturns, causing unemployment and disruptions in the supply chain. This raises concerns that Michigan could face an economic crisis if the auto industry isn't diversified and developed sustainably. In addition to its dependence on the auto industry, Michigan is also facing serious financial issues. The state's median household income is relatively low compared to other states, with over 40% of residents facing financial hardship. This creates a vicious cycle of poverty, where people struggle to access quality education and employment opportunities, hindering long-term development. The lack of solid financial opportunities also impacts the ability to invest in crucial areas such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Government support policies are essential to improve residents' financial situations and strengthen the state's economic stability. Another alarming factor for Michigan is the significant population decline in recent years. The state's population has decreased considerably, particularly in rural areas. as many young people leave the state in search of employment and to live in more developed areas. This not only reduces the workforce, but also places a heavy burden on social security systems, healthcare, and public services. Population decline means that the state's economy will struggle to maintain stable development without measures to retain residents and attract new ones. Equally critical is the deteriorating infrastructure and overburdened healthcare system. The state's transportation system, bridges, and other public works are in severe disrepair. About 1/3 of the state's bridges require repair or replacement, creating significant risks for public safety and disrupting economic activities. Additionally, the poor transportation infrastructure affects the ability of businesses to transport goods and increases logistics costs, particularly for businesses dependent on the auto industry. Michigan's healthcare system also faces numerous challenges. The rate of uninsured patients remains high, and healthcare facilities are struggling to meet the community's needs. Hospitals lack modern medical equipment and skilled personnel, making it especially difficult to provide care in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, which overloaded the healthcare system. Rural residents, where healthcare infrastructure is even more inadequate, face severe challenges in accessing basic healthcare services. From the issues Michigan is currently facing, several important lessons can be drawn. First, over-reliance on a single industry can lead to significant risks for a state's economy. Michigan needs to diversify its economy and invest in new industries, especially in technology and renewable energy sectors, to reduce dependence on the auto industry. Additionally, policies that support financially struggling residents are crucial to narrowing the wealth gap and improving the quality of life for the state's population. Population decline and the lack of job opportunities for young people are also issues that must be addressed. Michigan should develop vocational training programs, support startups, and create new job opportunities to attract and retain a younger workforce. Investing in education and skill development will be key to overcoming the state's workforce crisis. Finally, improving infrastructure and the healthcare system is critical to ensuring Michigan's sustainable development. Investing in upgrading the transportation system, healthcare facilities, and reducing the shortage of healthcare workers will improve residents' quality of life and make the state more attractive to investment. Michigan is facing many challenges, but with the right development strategy and comprehensive support policies, the state can overcome these difficulties and thrive in the future. Alabama, a state located in the southern U.S., is grappling with several severe economic and social issues that significantly affect the quality of life for its residents. The three major challenges Alabama faces are low income, high poverty rates, deficiencies in the education and healthcare systems, and deteriorating infrastructure. Alabama has a low median household income, with nearly 16% of the population living below the poverty line. This high rate of poverty reflects the state's economic struggles, where many residents lack enough income to meet basic life needs. This poverty is especially prevalent in rural areas and underdeveloped communities, where job opportunities are limited and wages are insufficient to maintain a stable life. The lack of high-paying jobs and financial support programs leaves many people trapped in poverty. High poverty rates also directly impact the quality of life and create a vicious cycle. Those living in poverty often lack access to quality education or good career opportunities, making it hard to break out of poverty. This not only affects mental health, but also has long-term negative effects on community development. One of the key factors hindering Alabama's efforts to reduce poverty and improve quality of life is its weak education and healthcare systems. The state's education system constantly struggles with inadequate funding and facilities. Schools in Alabama, especially in poorer areas, lack necessary equipment and learning materials, preventing students from receiving a full and quality education. This creates a large gap between urban and rural students, limiting opportunities for many to develop the skills they need for the future. Additionally, Alabama's healthcare system faces many challenges. The rate of uninsured individuals remains high, and public hospitals lack modern medical equipment. Rural areas in Alabama are especially underserved, with limited access to specialized healthcare services, preventing residents from obtaining basic health care. This leads to high rates of untreated illness and preventable deaths. Another serious issue Alabama faces is the deteriorating infrastructure. Many of the state's bridges are outdated and no longer safe, with a high rate of bridge deterioration. Transportation infrastructure, including roads and bridges, needs repairs and upgrades, but the state lacks the funding to carry out these projects. Poor infrastructure not only affects daily life, but also makes it difficult for businesses to transport goods and access essential services. This situation also reduces labor productivity and hinders business development, as an efficient transportation system is vital for economic growth. Investors may be reluctant to invest in the state if infrastructure improvements are not made, which leads to a shortage of job opportunities and affects the state's overall economy. From Alabama's current challenges, several important lessons can be drawn. First, the income gap and high poverty rate are major issues that need to be addressed through policies that support low-income residents and create good job opportunities. Financial support programs, tax reforms, and fostering the growth of small and medium-sized businesses could help reduce poverty and build a more sustainable economy. The second lesson is the importance of investing in education and healthcare. Improving the quality of education and providing learning opportunities for students is crucial in breaking the poverty cycle. Policies aimed at enhancing education and reforming the healthcare system to ensure that residents have access to basic health services will be key to improving the quality of life and development in the state. Finally, investing in infrastructure is essential for the state's long-term development. Improving transportation systems and other infrastructure projects will help strengthen connections between areas, boost the economy, and create new job opportunities for residents. Alabama is facing numerous challenges, but with the right investments in education, healthcare, and infrastructure, the state can overcome these difficulties and build a sustainable, thriving economy. Arkansas, a state located in the southern United States, is currently facing a range of serious economic issues. Despite having significant development potential in key industries like agriculture and manufacturing, the state struggles with low income, infrastructure problems, and a lack of essential public services. With a median household income of only $53,000, Arkansas ranks low in national income rankings. This income level reflects the economic inequalities and difficulties many families face daily. Moreover, the poverty rate in Arkansas stands at 15%, higher than the national average, indicating that a large portion of the state's population is living without access to basic services and development opportunities. This significantly impacts the quality of life and creates a difficult cycle to break. One of the most pressing issues in Arkansas is the hardship faced by rural areas. These regions lack stable jobs and basic healthcare services. Meanwhile, infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and internet networks is also underdeveloped, making life in these areas even more difficult. The lack of high-paying jobs has led many to migrate to larger cities, resulting in population decline and labor shortages in rural communities. Healthcare is one of the most serious issues facing Arkansas. The state has a high uninsured rate, with more than 200,000 residents without health insurance. This makes it difficult for many people to access necessary healthcare services, especially in rural areas. The situation has worsened since 2010, with 10 rural hospitals having to close, leaving residents with fewer opportunities to receive essential care. This is a significant problem that directly affects public health and the ability to maintain a healthy workforce. Education and infrastructure in Arkansas are also facing concerning issues. Less than 25% of adults in the state hold a bachelor's degree, a low figure compared to other states. This leads to a lack of skilled labor, making it difficult to meet the needs of modern industries. Additionally, the state's infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and internet networks, is in a state of serious disrepair, reducing the state's economic development potential and limiting community connectivity. Improving infrastructure will be crucial for enhancing the quality of life and attracting investment. Walmart, one of the world's largest companies, is the largest employer in Arkansas. However, Walmart is facing changes in its business strategy, including cost-cutting measures and automation, which could result in a reduction in job opportunities for residents of the state. While agriculture and manufacturing remain the backbone of Arkansas's economy, the state is facing global challenges such as climate change, shifting consumer demand, and fluctuating agricultural prices. These factors make the state's economy vulnerable and hard to stabilize. Arkansas currently relies on federal transfers to maintain its economic activity. Nearly 45% of the state's income comes from federal transfers, indicating a heavy dependence on Washington's budget and federal spending priorities. This dependence could pose significant risks if federal transfers are reduced or policy changes occur. Arkansas needs to find ways to reduce its reliance on federal support and focus on developing domestic industries to create stable revenue streams. The key lesson Arkansas can learn is the need to diversify its economy and reduce reliance on a few key industries such as Walmart and agriculture. States must focus on improving education and vocational training for the workforce to meet the needs of the modern economy. Additionally, improving infrastructure, especially in rural areas, will enhance quality of life and create more job opportunities for residents. It is crucial that Arkansas works toward reducing its dependence on federal transfers and building a self-sustaining and resilient economy. Do you agree that Arkansas is facing the risk of economic collapse? Leave a 1 if you agree, and a 0 if you don't agree with this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support us and stay updated on future developments. Let's explore more about the states facing economic crises. Kentucky is currently facing one of its most serious economic challenges: poverty and unemployment. Nearly 17% of the state's population lives in poverty, a concerning figure. This is particularly evident in some areas where the poverty rate can exceed 25%. These figures reflect the difficult reality that many families in Kentucky face daily. Poverty not only reduces the quality of life, but also creates a hard-to-break cycle, making it difficult for people to access education, employment opportunities, and income growth. Unemployment is also a major issue in Kentucky. Although the labor force participation rate is 58%, which is lower than the national average, many residents still lack stable jobs or cannot find suitable employment. The lack of high-paying job opportunities leaves many Kentucky families in unstable financial situations, struggling to maintain basic living standards. One of the primary reasons for Kentucky's economic struggles is the severe decline of the coal industry, which once served as the backbone of the state's economy. Since 2010, the coal industry has lost more than 60% of its jobs, leading to the loss of thousands of stable, well-paying positions. The coal industry not only provided jobs, but also contributed to the income of many families and communities in Kentucky, particularly in the Appalachian region, where the industry once thrived. With the decline of the coal industry, the Appalachian region has faced high unemployment rates and a stagnating economy. These communities lack sufficient alternative industries to create new jobs, resulting in prolonged unemployment. This has also led to a shortage of resources in areas such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure, further exacerbating the region's economic difficulties. Healthcare and education are two critical areas for the development of any economy, but Kentucky faces serious challenges in both. Since 2010, 12 rural hospitals have closed, leaving residents in these areas without access to essential healthcare services. The shortage of healthcare facilities in rural areas has worsened public health, particularly with high mortality rates from preventable health issues. In education, only 27% of adults in Kentucky hold a bachelor's degree, and the high school graduation rate is also low. The lack of quality education means that the workforce is underskilled and unable to meet the demands of the modern economy. This hampers economic development, as a weak education system cannot produce a workforce capable of participating in innovative and technological industries. One of the major problems for Kentucky is that its economy is overly dependent on two industries: coal and tobacco. While these industries contributed greatly to the state's development in the past, both are now facing difficulties. The coal industry is declining due to environmental factors and the shift towards alternative energy, while tobacco is being affected by changing consumer demand and health regulations. The lack of economic diversification makes Kentucky vulnerable to global fluctuations and difficult to maintain sustainable development. Kentucky's infrastructure is also facing serious problems. Many bridges and roads in the state are deteriorating, affecting the ability to connect communities and hindering economic growth. Additionally, the weak broadband infrastructure is a major issue, especially in rural areas, where people cannot access high-speed internet for education, work, and connection to the outside world. Improving infrastructure will be a key factor in boosting the state's economic development. Kentucky is currently facing a series of issues related to poverty, unemployment, industrial decline, and infrastructure shortages. However, the key lesson the state needs to learn is the necessity to diversify its economy, invest in education and healthcare, and improve infrastructure to create opportunities for sustainable development. If Kentucky can overcome these challenges by focusing on creative and technology industries, reforming education and healthcare, the state will have the opportunity to recover and thrive in the future. Nevada, a state famous for its luxury resorts and casinos in Las Vegas, heavily depends on the tourism industry, particularly casinos and hospitality services. Nearly 30% of the state's workforce is reliant on tourism, creating an economy that thrives on the prosperity of this sector. When tourism grows, Nevada's economy follows suit. However, the heavy dependence on tourism and gambling makes the state vulnerable to sudden shifts in the tourism market, such as financial crises or declines in the number of visitors. One of the most serious issues Nevada faces is its highly fluctuating unemployment rate. During times of recession, the unemployment rate in the state skyrocketed to 13%, while during stable economic periods, the rate fluctuated around 3.6%. This reflects the instability in Nevada's economy due to its over-reliance on the tourism industry. When the number of tourists decreases or major events are canceled, the state's economy is severely impacted, leading to increased unemployment and financial hardship for many families. This volatility makes it difficult to maintain a stable economy. Nevada is also grappling with tension in the housing market. Home prices in the state have risen sharply in recent years, while residents' affordability has decreased. This makes it difficult for many families to own homes, especially as wages do not increase in line with home prices. Many people in major cities like Las Vegas face high rent prices, pushing them into financial difficulties. This situation has put significant pressure on families and communities, reducing the quality of life and creating inequality in home ownership. The economy of Nevada is unstable due to the heavy reliance on tourism and gambling taxes. When the number of tourists drops or tourism is interrupted, the state faces a significant decrease in its tax revenue. This makes the state's budget vulnerable to external factors such as economic recessions or global financial crises. This dependency leaves the state without a stable and sustainable revenue source to maintain public services and support long-term development. Nevada's infrastructure is also facing serious challenges. About 20% of bridges and other transportation infrastructure are in poor condition, affecting the development and connectivity between cities in the state. This not only poses safety risks to residents, but also diminishes the ability to attract tourists and investments in other industries. Additionally, the issue of water scarcity from the Colorado River, the primary water supply for Nevada, is becoming increasingly severe. The lack of water creates significant challenges for the agriculture sector and other industries in maintaining production and providing services. The lesson Nevada needs to learn from its current economic situation is the need to diversify its economy. Over-reliance on tourism and gambling makes the state vulnerable to external factors. Development policies should focus on fostering other industries, particularly technology, manufacturing, and renewable energy, to reduce dependence on tourism. Additionally, improving infrastructure and addressing water issues are essential factors for ensuring sustainable development for the state. Strategies must be implemented to protect the Colorado River water supply, alongside investments in water-saving technologies and alternative resource development. Finally, adjusting the housing market and improving affordability for residents is crucial for reducing inequality and enhancing the quality of life for Nevada's residents. Only when Nevada builds a diverse and sustainable economy can the state face future challenges and achieve long-term growth. Louisiana is currently facing one of its most serious societal issues: high poverty and unemployment rates. Nearly 19% of the state's population lives in poverty, a figure significantly higher than the national average. This poverty rate not only reflects financial hardship, but also indicates a lack of access to basic services such as healthcare, education, and housing. Poor families in Louisiana face many difficulties in accessing opportunities for development, creating a hard-to-break cycle. The poorest areas are often in rural regions or communities affected by natural disasters, making it even harder for residents to escape poverty. The energy sector, particularly oil, plays a key role in Louisiana's economy. However, the state's over-reliance on oil makes it vulnerable to fluctuations in energy prices. When oil prices drop, Louisiana's economy faces immediate difficulties. The oil industry not only provides jobs for thousands of residents, but also contributes significantly to the state's budget. When energy prices decrease, Louisiana loses a major source of revenue, which impacts public services and economic development initiatives. Louisiana is also highly susceptible to natural disasters, especially hurricanes and flooding. Hurricane Ida, one of the recent natural disasters, caused damages exceeding $75 billion. These disasters not only leave thousands of residents homeless, but also have long-term effects on the economy. Recovering from each hurricane requires substantial time and money. The state's infrastructure is also in a state of severe deterioration, especially transportation systems and critical public works. Upgrading infrastructure will require billions of dollars, but the state lacks the financial resources to undertake these projects. The financial shortfall has led to delayed repairs and renovations, increasing the risk to residents and communities when facing future disasters. Another significant issue Louisiana faces is brain drain. Over 70% of college graduates leave the state within 5 years of graduating. This leads to a shortage of skilled and talented labor, which reduces the ability to develop creative and technological industries. Human capital is crucial for building a sustainable economy and diversifying industries. But when graduates don't find opportunities in Louisiana and migrate to other states, this creates a major gap in the state's economy. The lack of talent directly affects economic development and creativity in key sectors such as technology, healthcare, and education. The fight against poverty and natural disasters in Louisiana provides an important lesson on the necessity of economic diversification. Overdependence on the energy sector makes the state vulnerable to energy price fluctuations. To ensure sustainable development, Louisiana must build and grow other industries, particularly creative and technology sectors. This will help create new jobs and reduce dependence on external factors like oil prices. Improving infrastructure is also a crucial factor. Investing in infrastructure will not only help the state recover from natural disasters, but also create a solid foundation for future economic growth. The transportation, healthcare, and education systems need to be upgraded to meet the growing demands of residents and businesses. Alongside this, measures to support and encourage graduates to stay in Louisiana and contribute to the state's development are essential. Finally, reducing poverty and creating a better living environment for residents must be prioritized. Social programs and welfare support need to be strengthened to help people overcome hardships and provide opportunities for sustainable development. These changes will help Louisiana address current challenges and build a stronger economy for the future. Hawaii, a state known for its stunning landscapes and tropical climate, is a dream destination for many tourists and residents. However, beneath its paradise-like exterior, the state is facing one of its most severe economic challenges: an extremely high cost of living. The median home price in Hawaii exceeds $850,000, which is concerning for many residents with incomes that are not very high. Although the median household income in the state is about $88,000, this amount is still insufficient to cover the increasingly rising cost of living, particularly with the continuous surge in housing prices. Many families, especially workers and young people, are struggling to own homes or maintain a stable standard of living. This has led to a housing shortage, especially in urban areas like Honolulu. Hawaii's economy primarily depends on tourism, with around 30% of the state's GDP coming from the industry. While tourism is a crucial source of income, the state's heavy reliance on this sector makes Hawaii vulnerable, especially during times of economic downturn or global crises. When the number of tourists decreases, businesses in tourism, ranging from hotels and restaurants to transport companies, are severely impacted. The COVID-19 crisis clearly demonstrated this, as the sharp decline in tourists caused Hawaii's economy to struggle, resulting in the loss of thousands of jobs. This also affected industries dependent on tourism, such as real estate and retail services. Hawaii's real estate market has been experiencing major fluctuations. High home prices have made it difficult for many residents, especially native Hawaiians, to maintain a life in their homeland. Many have had to leave in search of opportunities in other states with lower living costs. This has led to a population decline and a loss of essential labor in the state. The displacement of native families from the housing market not only causes social disruption, but also leads to the loss of Hawaii's cultural identity and traditional community. This volatility further exacerbates poverty and inequality in the state. Hawaii is also facing a shortage of doctors and healthcare facilities, especially in rural areas and on remote islands. While Hawaii has an advanced healthcare system in major cities, people in more remote areas struggle to access basic healthcare services. The shortage of doctors and healthcare workers, particularly specialists in areas like mental health and long-term care, is making it difficult to provide adequate healthcare. This not only affects the quality of life, but also increases disease rates and reduces the productivity of the workforce. Hawaii's economy also depends on imports and external resources. With insufficient production of goods and services for self-sufficiency, Hawaii has to import nearly everything from food and building materials to energy. This makes the state's economy vulnerable to global market fluctuations and supply chain challenges. Additionally, reliance on external resources makes the state struggle with maintaining stability and economic autonomy in a constantly changing global environment. Hawaii's economic situation provides important lessons on the necessity of diversifying its economy. While tourism is an essential industry, overdependence on it makes Hawaii vulnerable to global fluctuations. The state needs to find ways to develop other industries, particularly technology, renewable energy, and manufacturing, to reduce reliance on tourism. Furthermore, improving housing affordability and enhancing healthcare quality are essential factors for creating a sustainable living environment for Hawaii's residents. Investing in infrastructure and new industries will help the state reduce its dependence on imports and build a more autonomous economy. Finally, policies on housing and support for Native Hawaiians need to be strengthened to maintain cultural identity and promote balanced development within the community. These changes will help Hawaii not only preserve its natural beauty, but also achieve sustainable growth in the future. Illinois is facing a severe financial crisis, particularly within its state pension system. The system currently has a shortfall of $139 billion, a staggering figure that reflects the ongoing financial instability. The rising pension debt and the state's inability to meet these obligations threaten the benefits of thousands of retirees. This issue not only impacts former public employees, but also affects the state budget, making it difficult to maintain public services and welfare programs for the residents. Illinois also struggles with high taxes and a high cost of living. The state has the highest property tax rates in the nation, which puts a heavy financial burden on residents and businesses. This not only affects the people, but also reduces the state's ability to attract investment from new companies and businesses. Additionally, the cost of living in Illinois is rising sharply, especially in major cities like Chicago. The high housing prices and increasing living costs make it difficult for many families to maintain a stable standard of living. The financial crisis has led to a budget shortfall for public services, severely affecting the quality of life for residents. Infrastructure, particularly in cities and rural areas, is deteriorating significantly. Construction, maintenance, and infrastructure upgrade projects have been delayed or cut, reducing the state's ability to serve the community and hindering its development. The transportation system, hospitals, and schools are also suffering from budget deficits, creating a vicious cycle where the government cannot meet the basic needs of the public. One of the major problems Illinois faces is the decline in population. The state lost more than 83,000 residents in 2024, a concerning number. This population decline is mainly due to migration out of the state, with many people, particularly young families and skilled workers, leaving in search of better opportunities in other states. The loss of such a large portion of the population directly impacts the state's economy, leading to a decrease in tax revenue and making it harder to maintain public services. The financial crisis and pension debt in Illinois are important lessons about the need for public financial system reform and debt management. Illinois needs to find sustainable solutions to address pension debt, such as restructuring the pension system and adjusting public spending. Additionally, The state must work to reduce the tax burden, particularly property taxes, to create a more stable environment for businesses and residents. Improving infrastructure and enhancing public service quality are also critical factors in recovering the economy and retaining residents. Illinois needs to address its budget shortfall by improving spending efficiency and increasing investment in infrastructure development projects. Finally, reversing population decline and halting the trend of migration requires policies that attract talent, especially in creative industries, technology, and education. The state needs to focus on creating an attractive living and working environment to retain and attract residents, while promoting sustainable development for the future. States like Arkansas, Kentucky, Nevada, Louisiana, Hawaii, and Illinois are currently facing deep economic crises. Beneath their seemingly developed exteriors, these states are gradually sinking into recession, severely affecting the lives of their residents and the future of their local economies. While each state has different challenges, they share one common issue: an over-reliance on declining industries, making their economies fragile and vulnerable to external disruptions. As the economic downturn approaches, financial difficulties will escalate, unemployment rates will rise, and the quality of public services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure will decline. States facing crises will experience a clear shortage of resources, unable to maintain public services, and communities will bear the consequences of a lack of employment opportunities, housing, and other basic services. These hardships not only weaken the economy, but also create inequality, leading to social crises within the states. To tackle these challenges, states must implement comprehensive reforms. Economic diversification is essential, reducing dependence on industries in decline like tourism, coal, and oil, while developing new sectors such as technology, renewable energy, and manufacturing. Financial policies also need reform to reduce public debt and establish a solid financial foundation, enabling states to recover and grow sustainably in the future. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to hit like. If you agree with the views presented, share to spread this important information to your friends and family, and subscribe to support us and not miss our future videos. We always appreciate your support.